Asunder. After the War of the Worlds. For more information, please visit servingworlds.com. Written and performed by John Miro. Marcus fired, cocked the pistol, and fired again. The first two pirates dropped. A red stain spread on the first pirate's forehead and the throat of the second. The other pirates shouted and twisted back behind the wall. Marcus threw the Erlenmeyer flask at the corner. It shattered, and fire splashed up the wall and onto flesh, inspiring fresh screams. Behind him, the other lieutenant, Jonas, shrieked and roared. Marcus spared him a glance and saw him firing his energy rifle into the air and running madly for the bend in the hall behind them. Hobe was on his knees, lighting his second Erlenmeyer flask. He had a gleam in his eye, and he charged after Jonas with a roar of his own. "Don't get killed, you stupid Canadian." Then Marcus was out of bullets. On instinct, he skidded to his knees before the first pirate he'd shot, dragging the rifle out from under the body. He fired wildly around the corner, then rolled away when the pirates fired back. "Balls!" the doctor shrieked, and fell to his knees in the middle of the hall, with his hands covering his head. In front of the doctor, Burns fired again and again. The rifles wouldn't last for long at this rate of fire, Marcus knew, before entering a recharge mode and becoming useless. But he thought they had the right idea. Scare them, keep them off balance. A moment later, a beam of energy lanced a gas lamp on the wall. The glass shattered, and a small explosion sent Burns across the boardwalk to hit the far wall. Marcus threw himself down, reaching for Burns's rifle and firing as fast as the jury-rigged trigger on the bottom of the weapon would allow. Then the gun stopped humming. Marcus tossed it aside and quickly snaked a hand out for Burns's ankles, dragging him back out of the line of fire. But there was no more fire from around the corner. There was laughter. "Your bees are sleepy," guffawed a lone pirate voice. A tall man, a black man like himself, with dirty, tangled dreadlocks, stepped out from behind the corner. He tapped his ear. "Got me a good ear to hear the bees in them guns, and yours are napping." With a gold-toothed grin, he dropped his rifle to the ground. "Mine are tuckered too, but this lady—" The pirate drew a cutlass from its scabbard. "Ah, she never gets tired." He turned his head and called out back the way he'd come. "They're here, hearties!" Marcus knew he'd be done if the pirate got the cutlass over his head for a clean slice. He leaped towards the man, or tried. His foot slipped on broken glass. His ankle turned, and he fell hard to the ground, the air knocked from his lungs. The pirate laughed even harder as he walked closer to Marcus, broken glass crunching under his heels. Against the wall behind Marcus, Dr. Grace sniffled. He looked at the man. His trembling hands were over his head. His face was ashen. The doctor's lip quivered, but he spoke clearly. "You're too ugly to be the man who kills me, you afterbirth." The pirate was momentarily taken aback. Then he tossed the cutlass from hand to hand, walking straight to the doctor. "Let's find out." Marcus scrambled over the doctor, shielding him with his body. "That's fine, fine," the pirate drawled. "This lady, she'll do you both." Marcus shut his eyes tight. "Robert, Samantha, I'm so sorry." The next sound Marcus heard was not the soft whistle of the cutlass's falling blade, but the smashing of glass and a hungry gulp of flame. The pirate began to scream. Something wet landed on Marcus's leg, and searing pain followed. He rolled out of his jacket, smothering the flames that had leaped off the pirate, who was now little more than a wordless, screaming lump of flesh writhing on the planks. More hands slapped at his legs, Lieutenant Jonas's hands. Soon enough the flames were doused, and Jonas hauled him off the doctor. "Come on," the soldier said, his voice hoarse with anger, as he hauled Marcus to his feet. Hobe barreled around the corner next. His terrified face relaxed a bit when he saw Marcus was up and around. "We're working here, and you guys are playing hotfoot?" Marcus raised a fist in promise of violence, but felt himself smile in relief at seeing his first mate. "There's not much time," Jonas said curtly, helping a moaning Burns to his feet, "before they kettle us and we're done. Are you leading us somewhere or not?" "Right," Marcus said, shaking his head to clear it. He turned a full circle in place, thinking. "Can we go back a couple of buildings and turn?" "We can if we hurry," Jonas said, and led him back the way they'd come, to a smaller side boardwalk. The lieutenant's eyes darted constantly behind and ahead, his small ponytail bobbing. Hobe offered Burns his hand, but the lieutenant declined, thanking him all the same very much. Hobe rolled his eyes, but smiled. Marcus pushed the doctor forward, and when Grace was moving, he offered Lieutenant Jonas his hand, too. "Thank you." Jonas gave his hand a quick pump, but kept moving. "More used to me on your feet," he muttered. Marcus smiled. "I like to think so." "And you?" Jonas asked the doctor. "You're all right?" In answer, Dr. Grace retched, narrowly missing the lieutenant's pant leg. There were fresh shouts somewhere in the distance. Marcus and Jonas shared a look, and lifted the doctor back to his feet by the collar of his ruined smoking jacket. They ran for their lives. The adrenaline of the battle faded, and the party moved more or less silently, following Marcus's lead. More orange light and smoke filled the air, along with the sounds of crackling fire. "I'll ask again, Marcus," Burns whispered, eyes alert, weapon raised. "What kind of ship does one get aboard 80 fathoms below the waves?" Marcus stopped their forward advance, and turned them down a hall to the right, where the telltale halo of white light over the rooftops proved he'd guided them true. "You're about to find out." The hum of alien weapons pricked at all their ears, and Marcus slowed, raising his rifle's barrel into the air, and raising his other hand for good measure. Owen's eyebrows creased, but he exercised caution, and raised his own hands as he turned, and froze in place. Suspended in the air above them like a spider swung a blue and green-skinned walker. 5 colors of laser light cycled across Owen's forehead and chest, then moved past, to paint a target on each member of their party. Marcus felt his skin itched where the beams danced. He knew all too well that once those lights had touched him, the small walking machine, even hanging precariously in the air from the roofs of the surrounding buildings, could tear every one of their bodies apart at the first sign of hostile intent. The machine squawked harsh, electronic sounds. A warning alarm. "Gentlemen," Marcus whispered harshly, "I suggest someone introduces us." "Lieutenant Jonas here," the soldier identified himself loudly. "Attaché to Lieutenant Colonel Mary. Call sign, Whitehall. I say again, Whitehall. We have Dr. Grace, sir." "And the American, too?" called a voice from above. How lovely. Marcus looked up. High up on the right, the lieutenant colonel stood and glared down at Marcus. "You have Captain Riggs to thank for Dr. Grace's life, and for mine," Owen said in a hard voice, his opinion of Mary's rudeness clear in his tone. "He got us out of the first attack, and helped save us from a second outside the doctor's quarters." "It would appear you're of some use after all," Mary allowed, with a frown, and signaled his men to stand down. Someone blew a tin whistle, which signaled the walking machine to drop from the roof and scuttle forward on the boardwalk. "Come on, then," Jonas roared from behind. "Get moving." Soldiers rounded the corner ahead. Marcus and the others made room for them to run past and take up positions guarding their rear. From there the soldiers pushed them forward faster. Explosions and orange flares of light reflected on the cavern ceiling, accompanied by screams as they neared their destination, the white light ahead. The tunnel sloped down above, and with one final turn the hallway opened up onto a smaller version of the loading docks at either end of Midway, and Lieutenant Burns gasped. A dozen or more walkers shook the boardwalk as they carried wooden crates from stockpiles down onto the rock floor of the cavern, and beyond, into a brightly lit room where the ocean should be. These were smaller than the war machines that had led the invaders' slaughter, the tallest only 3 times the height of a man, but otherwise they looked the same, iridescent metal clam-shaped cockpits, and small masses of metallic grasping tentacles beneath. There were fewer weaponry mounted front and back of the cockpits. In place of the heavier cannon, 2 clusters of long, segmented tentacles writhed. All the walkers traversed the steps and uneven rock floor with disturbing speed, their tentacles quickly transferring the crates and canvas sacks piled haphazardly on the boardwalk into the White Room. Lieutenant Colonel Mary jogged down the stairs from the roof to bark orders to the press of soldiers and those few in civilian dress, making their way forward into the massive, brightly lit room with curving walls in all the metallic hues the invaders used. "If you please, Lieutenant Jonas," the lieutenant colonel called out without turning, and Jonas directed their small group to grab what they could from the pile and move forward. Elsewhere in the tunnel, a brace of pistols fired, and more shouts sounded. Screams quickly followed. Marcus and Hobe traded looks, and each grabbed the rope handle of a long wooden crate on the floor before them. They made their way quickly down the stairs. The scene was nothing new to them. However, Hobe gestured with his chin to where Lieutenant Burns hesitated just ahead of them, staring all around the edges of the tunnel. With one foot, Burns cautiously prodded the hard green and yellow foam that edged around the White Room. "It's like a resin," Marcus called out. "Seals the water out where the ship meets the tunnel." Owen pointed ahead. Marcus didn't need to ask what amazed him. He was sure he knew, despite the soldiers' utter silence. It wasn't how the lights seemed to emanate from inside brilliant metal columns. It wasn't the fact that the room could swallow a cathedral in London town. It wasn't even the strange smells wafting into the tunnel on a light breeze, replacing mustiness that cloaked everything here beneath the ocean with the smell of cinnamon. No, it was what hung from the ceiling, high above. Marcus spared them a glance, and saw the forest of metal legs and tentacles. More killing machines than he could count slumbered above their heads, waiting for a silent signal to walk, attack, and kill. Unbidden, his mind conjured a whisper of their soulless battle cry, even though he'd come to grips with the sight before him months before. He could understand why the stalwart Lieutenant Burns was frozen in place. More soldiers pushed roughly past. The sound of a crackling fire reached his ears. Somewhere in the shadows, the flames loosed by the battle now feasted on the boardwalk. "There's no going back, Owen," Marcus whispered. He waited for a response, but Burns just stared at him, mouth open. "You asked what kind of ship. Well, here you are." Another explosion lit up the tunnel. A wash of orange flame showed the gouts of black smoke rising into the air, the nearest only a few buildings away. A phalanx of officers appeared on the boardwalk from the far end of the hallway Marcus and his friends had just come through. They were shouting. Their whistles were blaring. The sounds of human and invader rifle fire grew even closer. "Get on the bloody boat!" Lieutenant Jonas roared as he raced back out to the dock, a fresh rifle in his hands, to defend their retreat. Marcus pushed Owen roughly between the shoulders. Burns got on the damned boat. You have been listening to Asunder, the first in a series of tales after the War of the Worlds. For more information, please visit servingworlds.com. Music, Ibrido Umano by Dano, available at danosongs.com. Title image, War of the Worlds by Adam Blakemore. Learn more about Adam's artwork at blakey00.deviantart.com. Thank you for listening.